going to be the greatest thing that's ever going to happen to you in your life, and embrace it.
Every heart beats true for the red and the blue, and we sing this song to you.
He was footy's affable Irishman, a Brownlow Medal winner, businessman, philanthropist, writer, youth worker, husband and father.
I live for my family.
Today we remember and pay tribute to the great Jim Stynes.
The legend of Jim Stynes will grow even bigger.
On Triple M.
This morning, Sam Stynes issued the following statement. Jim Stynes died on Tuesday the 20th of March at 8:20am. Jim was pain-free, dignified and peaceful. Matisse and Tiernan were present. Not surprisingly, in his last week of life, Jim continued to defy the odds and lived his life to the fullest, attending the Melbourne versus Hawthorn football match, his son Tiernan's 7th birthday celebration, the Melbourne Football Club Blazer ceremony and a casual Friday night dinner at Topolino's in his much-loved suburb St Kilda. In his final days, Jim was immersed with insurmountable love and tenderness, surrounded by his family and some close friends in the comfort of his own home. On behalf of Jim, my heartfelt thanks to all at the Cabrini Palliative Home Care that, combined with Jim's fighting spirit, resulted in Jim's extended 3-year life journey. It's an incredibly sad time, however, Jim, in his passing, has made us see that in our grief that we can smile in our hearts for a beautiful man who will forever hold a special place in the hearts of many. Jim's lesson is that life was to be challenged and treasured. Sam Stynes. On March 20, this morning at 8:30. Hello, I'm Eddie Maguire. This is Triple M's tribute to a great man of football and to a great man of substance, Jim Stynes. I'm joined by my colleague and a former opponent on the field, but a partner off the field in Luke Darcy. Good afternoon, Luke.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ed. What a remarkable tribute from Sam Stynes, only a matter of hours after Jim's passing this morning. We've only had those few hours to reflect on Jim's life. And the word, Ed, that I keep coming back to is integrity. And you can hear that a lot in the next hour or so that we spend on air here this morning. And we were talking just before we started, Ed, about AFL football. We always talk about AFL football being fun and the greatest thing you do. But occasionally, I get disillusioned. There's the bickering and the infighting and the rumours and the backroom stuff that goes on. And don't worry about Jim as a ruthless competitor on the field. He played as tough and hard as anyone that I've ever played against. But the thing that Jim always did was the right thing by people in every circumstance, in every situation, and handled it with an integrity that is just extraordinary. I had the great privilege of being in Ireland with Jim in 2002, and it was a unique situation for him as an assistant coach competing against his beloved Ireland. And he stood up one night and he sang a song about the potato famine and what it meant to him. And he had tears rolling down his eyes. A terrible singer, by the way, Jimmy, and makes me sound like Pavarotti. But what he said was, I want the Australian team to win more than anything, but I want you to understand what this means to the Irish people at the same time. So that's what I can't help but think about, competing but with integrity. And we're going to hear a lot from Jim and his friends here this afternoon.
I was lucky enough to be a young reporter when all this started with the Melbourne Football Club, and having an Irish mother, having a real eye for Jim and getting to know him early on, and being lucky enough to actually call a VFA second division game when Jim had been moved out of Melbourne. It didn't look like the experiment was going to work, and he played at the Paran Football Club, and I was lucky enough to actually give the best on ground on this day, and Jim was clearly the best on ground, and I was staggered by this guy who looked like he was about to be on the scrap heap, how he picked himself up in a big, VFA in those days was brutal. And he was in there and he was fighting for the ball, and the mind's eye of Jim on the football ground of just ploughing after the ball, getting it, going to the next contest, doing all these things. And he went back to Melbourne afterwards. But the next thing that I remember more clearly than probably anything was the Brownlow Medal night with his father. And we went to Bunratty Castle afterwards, locked the doors, kept the cameras out, bar our one, which we had in there for posterity, and away we went, and singing Molly Malone on stage, which was fantastic. But the final one that I will always hold was the first time I ever saw him speak on stage at Reach. And I've seen plenty of really good speakers get up at sales seminars or football coaches in motivational situations. This was to see a man content in his own skin, giving of himself and finding his own place in life. And to see the reaction from the kids around him was just something absolutely significant.
We're going to hear from a lot of the great people in Jim's life. Ty Kennelly, Jack Grimes, the captain of the Melbourne Football Club, Andrew Demetrio, the AFL CEO, who's going to join us as well today as we pay tribute to the great Jim Stynes.
This is Jim Stynes. This one, you see a guy who has dedicated his life to others and to the Melbourne Football Club in recent times and has done wonderful things.
Jim Stynes' story is just extraordinary. To come out from Ireland, to break the ground there and actually be sent back to the VFA, and then to go back and win a Brownlow medal. Now to actually see him go through this battle and fight it in the way that Jim has approached everything in his life, it is just an amazing story.
This is going to be the greatest thing that's ever going to happen to you in your life, and embrace it.
One man comes in the name of love. One man come and go.
I've got cancer, and don't worry about it. Don't treat me any differently.
We've had really hard times, but he just keeps chipping away and hanging in there.
What's your purpose now? What are you living for? It's like very simple. You know, I live for my family. You know, I love my wife much more than I ever loved her. I love my kids more than I ever loved them.
I can get out there and enjoy fruits of life, which is watching Melbourne play and playing with my kids and going down to Reach. It's just great just being a part of it.
Jim's one of those very intimidating people, I find.
Yeah, he can
He's
be.
just so good and decent, and he's done so much in his life.
You know, having a positive attitude is very important because you have to not be fearful of death and all those things that can get in the way.
Yeah, it is a bit harrowing. It is confronting, but it's gripping and it is inspiring.
You know, integrity is the essence of everything, and that's the way I try to live my life.
So we declare Jim Stynes from the Melbourne Football Club the winner of the 1991 Brownlow medal.
AFL legend Jim Stynes has lost his battle with cancer at the age of 45.
You know, because I've often said to him, you just can't leave me here on my own to do this.
Tend to eulogise people regardless of what they like, and then speak them up. Well, with Jim you can't speak high enough because he's just one of the great people, and that's a fact.
What am I to learn from this? You know, it's happening for a reason. Can it help me as a person? And it has. It's totally has. I've been very, very fortunate, and it'll be, you know, a remarkable journey that I will have experienced.
The legend of Jim Stynes will grow even bigger.
See you on the other side, brother.
See you on the other side.
Jim Stynes, who passed away this morning at 8:20. I don't think cancer beat Jim Stynes. Jim Stynes beat cancer, and he lived his life to the fullest. It ended, unfortunately for us, at 45 years of age. Would love to have seen him go a lot longer, but he packed so much into it and has made such an impact. He certainly made an impact on this man. John Northey was one of the great coaches of the Melbourne Football Club, a real player's man. He helped and was there when Jim Stynes went from the football scrap heap to a Brownlow medal, from being a lost Irishman to becoming the giant of a man that he became. And John Northey had a massive imprint on this young man as well. Good afternoon, John. We would love to have been speaking in better circumstances, but a time to reflect on an amazing young man.
Well, good afternoon, Eddie. Yes, it is. It's even though you know that this is inevitable, perhaps that it's going to happen one day, but when it does, it is just one hell of a shock to know a person such as Jimmy, or anybody even, but to know a person such as Jimmy Stynes who's been through so much, and then all of a sudden, you know, they aren't about, and it's just very, very sad.
John, we've got the image of you in our minds after Jim ran through the mark in the famous prelim final in 1987, and the look of anguish on your face. Can you tell us about your recollections? Because it was a tumultuous time for Jimmy. He took off overseas and really felt as though he'd let the whole football club down at that stage.
Well, he did. However, we were very fortunate, I suppose, to have that photo because under I locked all the press out after that short period of time, but there was one under our trainer's table who actually took the photo. So that was quite humorous, I thought, on that heated time. But it was a period when you could imagine losing the game in the last kick of the day, 23 years in the finals, and here was a chance to go into the grand final. However, when you look back, when we all look back on the situation, there were many, many other instances throughout the game, but this game will be remembered for that last 15 metres where Jimmy ran across the mark, and when he came into the room, I just really unloaded in him, saying some ridiculous things about probably ever doing that sort of thing again. You'll never play for Melbourne Football Club, and all that sort of rubbish that you go through when you're extremely under the pressure or the tense moments that are there. However, I did speak to Jimmy after that in the lift going down, and I just said to him, don't worry about all the ridiculous things I'd said after the game. It was just through pure frustration, and I do think that took a toll on Jimmy, and as you said, look, he took off overseas after that to get away from it, but I do believe there was the story where he was somewhere in the inner city and some person's walked up and said, aren't you Jimmy Stynes, who ran over the line?
Sitting on a train in Paris, he was, John, at the time, thought he got away from it, and he thought, well, I can't hide anywhere in the world. I need to get myself together and get on with it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So,
John, he was just a tough love. His father, Brian, certainly showed him that the way in life was actually to do it the hard way. From that, though, John, and you should never be labelled with that one photo because it was a seminal moment in his life for Jim Stynes, and he recovered. The night when he won the Brownlow medal, you were one of the first ever to give him a hug.
Oh, look, it was just a fantastic night. The Melbourne Football Club at that stage, everybody was there. As I say, for the right reasons. They were all very proud because he was the favourite that night, and to go through that situation and be a favourite and to actually have to sit there and all that, and he had his dad with him, which was fantastic, and we just thoroughly enjoyed the night, expectation there, and then you go and win the Brownlow medal. Well, that was just one of the greatest moments I've had. And then our celebrations after it continued for quite a while.
They certainly did. I'll never forget you singing Molly Malone at Bunratty Castle. Good on you, John. Thanks for taking the time out this afternoon to pay tribute to a great man and your contribution to his wonderful life. John Northey, former coach of the Melbourne Football Club. Late last year.
We've had the great privilege, haven't we, of having Jim in studio with us over the last 18 months and catching up with him and his struggles with cancer. And this is Jim going back about 2 months ago talking about the impact that it's had on his kids.
I just sort of grabbed the kids. I need some help,
Yeah.
And so we're all in there, and then, the little fella decided he wanted to have a bit of a shave as well. And, it's great to be able to make it normal for them because it's not normal, it is a very, they're having a very unusual, I suppose, upbringing. But I want them to be able to discuss it, not be afraid, and whatever happens, because there's no point hiding it. And then if the worst comes, they've got no choice.
Jim Stynes speaking about his kids and their battle. That's why I'm fervently of the belief that cancer did not beat Jim Stynes. He beat cancer and led the way. His time ended, as will all come for all of us one day.
As you can imagine, and enormous amount of tributes flowing through in the world of Twitter and the football world in particular, and I've got reams of pages here, and I'll read you some of the ones that I've highlighted. Rest in peace, Jim Stynes, great man who lived to help others. Thoughts with Sam and the family from Nathan Buckley this morning. A legend, hero, warrior and saviour. My heart is broken for the Stynes family. Thoughts are with you. Rest in peace, Big Jimmy. Gone, but never forgotten. Nathan Jones from the Melbourne Football Club. All my thoughts are with the Stynes family. Jimmy did so many great things in his life for so many people, respected by everyone. Cameron Ling, Rest in peace, Jim Stynes. We will miss you, mate. Lance Armstrong, who connected with Jim in the last couple of years. We know Lance's own issues with cancer. Rest in peace, Jim Stynes. Had the pleasure of working with him. Always a great person to all those around him. Andrew Bogut, some international tweets this morning. triplem.com.au. We've got our own online tribute to Jim Stynes. We'd love to get your thoughts this morning.
And 133353. Call through now. We'd like to hear from you what you think we should do for Jim Stynes. There's already talk of a statue, which I think is a certainty at the MCG, as there is already the Jim Stynes room. There's also talk that the traditional Melbourne versus Collingwood Queen's birthday game be called the Jim Stynes Cup. Already Collingwood has said yes, we'd love to be involved if that's the wish of the Melbourne Football Club. I think that all footballers this opening round should wear black armbands. And even Neil Mitchell on 3AW today had suggestions that people drive around this afternoon with a silent tribute. Just put your lights on as you're driving around today. In our thoughts with Jim Stynes. It certainly has transcended just not only the football world, but the society in general. And we have a grab now from the Prime Minister of Australia, Julia Gillard, and Ted Bellew, the Premier of Victoria.
Jim was a great footballer, an absolute legend at the Melbourne Football Club, but he has come into the hearts of Australians for so much more than his footballing career. He showed such bravery in the face of his devastating illness. He's shown such courage to the Australian people. He will be very sorely missed. We will always remember Jim as a great footballer, a great man, a person of great courage, and someone who, even in the depths of his illness, took the time to inspire others. My deepest condolences to his family, friends, and to the Melbourne Football Club.
Well, there's a certain deep sadness right across Victoria and Australia and other parts of the world today. The passing of Jim Stynes is really a moment in this state's history which I think everybody will be very moved by. Jim Stynes was in many respects the classic Victorian. A young man who came here from overseas with ambition and aspiration, charmed everybody he met, worked his butt off, succeeded, embraced the values and culture of our state and our nation, and in the process won the hearts of, I think, every Australian, every Victorian, and certainly every sports lover.
The Government of Victoria has offered the Stynes family a state funeral which has been accepted. We expect that to be either early next week or late this week, and I would be guessing it would be at St Patrick's Cathedral, and will be one of the biggest funerals in this town. We love our characters, and particularly our football characters. The last state funeral for a football character was the great E.J. Whitten.
Aaron's called in from Upway as we remember Jim Stynes this morning. Good morning to you, Aaron.
Hello, Eddie. Hello, Luke. How are we today?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah, I encountered Jim through the Reach Foundation when I was about 16 years of age. I wasn't the most of a bright of kids, so I had a bit of a drug problem, and he sort of seen that in me and seen I could be a lot more of a person. He took time out to actually talk to me and get to know me a bit more and show me a bit of a path, really.
Yeah, he's obviously had an enormous impact on your life, Baron. Jules Lund is someone we're going to speak to shortly, who also came through the Reach program like you, Aaron. Can you just tell us what it meant having Jim give up his time, and has it actually impacted your life on a daily basis?
It just impacts everything. It's just the way how you look at things. I used to be a very negative person, and he just picks that out of you. He just picks it out and he goes, stuff this. He was very in your face, very you can just get rid of that crap and just concentrate on all the positive things and just don't worry about all the negative crap. And that's what he'd done the best. He didn't see all that other stuff that people would see in you. You know what I mean? He just seen it like a bright light, and it was just amazing. And the things that came out of you when you're around Reach itself, or the group, or the people, were just inspiring, and it inspired you to be the best person that you could be. And that's the best thing that Jim ever done out of anyone, out of anything in my life.
Well said, Aaron. We really appreciate you sharing your thoughts. And the Reach program, of course, a great part of Jim's life and affected so many people. Damien's on the line from Geelong.
Yeah, g'day. How you going, guys?
Good, Damien.
Well, Jimmy, it was a a demon all his life, right? Through and through. But other than the demon, he's a saint.
It's a good point you make there, Damien. I was interviewed on Fox Footy today and on Fox Sports News, and I said he is as close as sporting sainthood as you could get, in that everyone has their faults. There's no doubt about that. We all have our faults, and Jim had probably less than others, but he had his faults nevertheless. And as you said, he was a tough competitor. He was a tough hombre on the ground. There's no doubt. He would hit you as fast as look at you, going hard at the ball. But the thing is, he transcended that and has given so much more of his life to not only the people at Reach, but all around him and the Melbourne Football Club and his family in general. So we agree with you there, Damien. Without becoming over-dramatic about this, in the true sense of what a sainthood actually is, Jim Stynes has certainly impacted on so many people. Kate from Carrum Downs. Kate, your thoughts on Jim Stynes?
Hi, Eddie. How you going?
Good, thanks, Kate.
Bit of a tough day for us all. Lifelong Demon supporter and member, and I think we all knew it was coming, but still a bit of a shock. But I'd just like to congratulate, was it Aaron, the first caller, for calling in? And my personal recommendation, I think, to tribute Jimmy, I suppose, would be to dig deep into our pockets and give to the Reach Foundation, because I think, obviously, he's done some wonderful work and it needs to be carried on.
Thanks very much, Kate. Yeah, well said, Kate. We'll get a link up on our website to make sure that any donations to the Reach Foundation can be smoothed through as quickly as possible. Jimmy has got some great mates around here at Triple M. Gary Lyon, one of his great friends in life, and late last year he was in the Triple M footy studio at the game talking to his great mate Gary Lyon.
You know, because I'm on different treatments over the period, so I've been going on this for the last nearly 9 months. So it's unpredictable. You don't know what the next scans are going to give you. They've been giving me, the first scans that I had were, they were lumps, so they were able to cut them out. Then the next time it was lesions in the brain, so then they had to do a different type of treatment, and so it goes on. So, and some of those treatments, you get very sick. Some of them, you just get very tired. Some you get like you get grumpy.
That's the great thing. Jim had a sense of humour all the way through his battle and through his life as well. Ty Kenley is a young man who came out to Australia in similar circumstances, but at least the path had been paved by people like Jim Stynes along the way. And Ty Kenley joins us on the line this morning, the first Irish import, if you like, to have won a premiership, as Jim Stynes was the first to win a Brownlow medal. Good afternoon, Ty.
Afternoon, guys. How you doing?
Good, Tig. You're a Kerryman, he was a Dubliner, but you're Irishmen together, and there was a tremendous bond between the two.
Yeah, it was. Look, it's a very, very sad day. I think, Jimmy really paved the way for us Irishmen, and I wouldn't be talking to you guys here if it wasn't for Jimmy. I think, and not just Irish players, but I think for many international players, and he really did set the way, and I got clubs interested in international players to come out, and I'm indebted to Jim for the rest of my life, because I didn't know a whole lot about the game when I came out, and he was one of the first blokes to give me a call and see how I was getting on, and he's done enormous work for Irish people. We're a very, very proud nation in Ireland, and we're a small world, small community in Ireland, so it's not very big, and people like Jim doing what he's done for Australia and for Ireland is huge.
Tig, we know it was a massive leap of faith for you to leave your family as a great Irishman, a sensational Gaelic player. Was it an easier conversation to discuss with them and say, listen, look at Jim Stynes, he's gone down there, and not only has he competed, he's won the best individual honour and become one of the all-time greats. Was that a conversation you were able to have that made it easier for you to come out?
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's when you've got someone, with your own background and your cultural history, it makes things a lot easier for yourself, and you can believe a lot more in yourself that you can do it, because someone, like I said, with the same background and heritage as yourself has done it and has been so successful at it. It certainly has paved the way for a lot of us, and I'm sure, I've talked to a couple of Irish boys already that are here, and they're obviously quite proud of Jimmy, and it's a peace of mind knowing that someone from your own background has been able to do a game that, we don't know a whole lot about back home in Ireland.
Tig, what will the reaction be like in Ireland?
Yeah, look, it's huge. Jimmy's it's big all over the world. Obviously, both sides of the world it'll be outpouring of emotion. I'm sure the family, all the Stynes, There are a lot of people that will come out for the funeral from Ireland, and I'm sure they'll be overwhelmed, the Stynes family, from the support and the help that they're going to get from Ireland, and of course, obviously here in Australia. But he's well known. Like, if you mention AFL in Australia or in Ireland, sorry, it's Jim Stynes. It's Jim Stynes, and that's what the name itself is very much about. Is Jim Stynes and the AFL in Ireland.
Good on you, Tyke. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
No problem, guys. Thanks very much.
Tyke Keneally joining us from Sydney, the Sydney Swans Premiership champion, another beneficiary of the life and times of Jim Stynes.
From Richardson is a man who has won premierships as an AFL player, has coached premierships, and is generally one of the great people in AFL football. He's also the man who recruited Jim Stynes as part of the Irish experiment. And Barry joins us this morning. Good morning, Bones.
Morning, Ed.
Hey, it's great to be able to speak to you. Unfortunately, in these situations, though, Bones, can you tell us about how it came about? Is it true that you actually took an ad in the paper in Ireland and Jimmy was one of the first to answer?
Fairly close, Ed, yeah. A bit different to that. How can I put it? I was chairman of selectors at Melbourne at the time when Barras was coaching, and we'd previously recruited Sean White 2 years earlier, which is sad again too, but... And the way it worked, there was a Christian brother called Brother Tom McDonnell who would recruit around Ireland. He was a bit like the Ray Jordan of Ireland, a junior coach. And so he would he did produce probably 12 to 15 players for me to run a clinic with. And that was certainly an ad in the paper in Dublin that Jimmy responded to. So there was always a group of sort of 12 to 13, 14 players, young boys, and then it was up to me to sort of be the recruiter, I guess. Yeah.
Well, Barry, what stuck out? Because he was a skinny, pale Irishman. He had a bit of height about him, but not much else from picking him out. It'd be like walking down to the local school and picking out the tall kid in the class.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I don't know. I'll tell you what it was, though. Recruiting is a bit of an art form in some ways, apart from just recognising talent. And certainly as a young man, he had good athletic ability. That was relatively obvious, even though he was a bit giraffe-like. But there was something about him, and I think you've met him and would know him well. I think something about those sparkling blue eyes and the just a bit of an aura about him. And I think that was probably the clincher, that he was such a determined boy, even in those 3 days that I saw him in Dublin, that there was something about him that kind of stood out. So you kind of go with your gut feel.
Bones, it's Luke Darcy here as well with Ed. Did you have any doubts, Bones, when it started to go a little bit astray and you got sent back to the VFA? We're thinking maybe this isn't going to work out?
Look, not really. And I have to say I'd done something dumb like Eddie. I'd become president of Richmond in 1985. And so I was in contact with Jimmy a fair bit, almost like a mentor type person, I suppose. So I knew he'd gone to Paran, and I think that probably we talked about it and sort of convinced him it may well be the best thing, because it would A, toughen him up, and B, give him a lot of game time. And I think that as he became more successful at Paran and did very well there in that half year, that I think we then thought, well, yep, he can play senior football. But look, no one would ever have anticipated that he would win a Brownlow medal, that he would play the number of games he did, that he would become the person that he did. So in recruiting a footballer, I suppose I could use the word pride that we recruited a great Australian.
Hey, Barry, Slug Jordan was his coach in those days. Slug was well known for his tirades. He was a tough man of football. I think Crackers Keenan used to run round with Jimmy Stynes in the under-19s, literally taking him to the ball to try and teach him where to run to. And there was a classic case of one time he gave away a free kick, and Slug didn't need a runner in these days, Das. He just yelled out the window, and everybody heard, including the opponents, what he thought about him. And it was probably the days before racial vilification was an issue with Irish people as well. It would be fair to say that it wasn't all wine and roses for the young Jim Stynes making his steps in football.
Look, that's true, and we shouldn't be too morbid about this, because we're celebrating really a great life, and certainly his mum and dad should have enormous pride in the person they brought up. But just very quickly with Slug, one of the lovely stories that comes out of all that is that when Jimmy played his first game, he never played a game of Australian football. It was down at the old Punt Road Oval, and Slug would yell out from the louvers. And, so half-time, they came in and the central umpire came to Jim to Slug and said, Slug, will you tell that Irishman? He said, "You're driving me mad." He said, "Can you tell him I'm not the ref?" Because apparently Jimmy kept saying, "Will you bouncy effing thing straight, ref? Have you got the oil on the side of a hill, ref? Will you bouncy effing thing straight?" So he came in at half time and the ref came over to Slug and said, "He's driving me mad." And he said, then the boundary umpire came over and said, "And can you tell him I'm not the ball boy?" So he's saying, "Will you throw it in, ball boy?" So he always had that, the thing about Jimmy Stynes is he's always been a joyful person, just a joyful person with that, he'll greet you with a smile before anything else happens. And, look, I certainly feel a bit flat having, just lost a good friend.
Bones, thanks for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Barry Richardson, one of the all-time greats, premiership player with Richmond and premiership coach, and the man who recruited Jim Stynes to the Melbourne Football Club. Time now to look back at Jim's documentary, Every Heart Beats True, and let's have a listen to Jim's wife, Sam, talking about her life with Jim.
When you choose a life partner, I guess I liked the prospect of Jim because he's so sort of faithful and stable and willing to stick things in and work it out even when it's hard. And we've had really hard times, but he just keeps chipping away and hanging in there. And
I needed to live a better life, and getting cancer has led me to a much better life. I love my wife much more than I ever loved her. I love my kids more than I ever loved them. I appreciate the moments we have together much more than I used to.
That's from the documentary Every Heart Beats True, the Jim Stynes story. Channel 9 will be showing that documentary tonight at 8:30, and it'll also be on sale through the Visual Entertainment Group, which I'm a part owner of. All profits from the sale of this DVD, which is a great story. It's a great one to show your kids, will go to Rich. All profits, and that was an agreement with Jim a long time ago, and Mike Dolby, who was the head of Veg, very keen to make sure that is underlined. All profits will go to Reach.
And one of the great people affected by the Reach Foundation is a friend of ours as well, and from Reach, and of course Jimmy's great mate Jules Lunn joins us this morning. Good morning, Jules. This afternoon. Good morning, Jules.
Hey, Darth. Hey, Ed.
Hey, Jules. Our thoughts are with you, mate. That's the first thing we can say to you. Our thoughts are with you. As much as we all know this has been coming, as it will come for all of us one day, it still comes as a shock.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's 2 parts shock, 2 parts relief. There was no bouncing back over the last month or so. There was no gain whatsoever in him fighting any longer. The quality of life had really slid. So, for me, I was just hoping that it would be as peaceful as possible and as quickly as possible, because it was, it's a strange thing about cancer. By the time you come to the end, death is almost the lesser of 2 evils, and you find yourself looking towards that as a way out of the discomfort. And it's a beautiful sunny day today, and Jim is high above us, wishing that he could come down and explain to us the experience he's having, because he's one more than anyone that would just love a new adventure, and he's set upon one. And his body's down here for us to return to the ashes. But God, he's flying again, and that feels really good.
Jules, did you get a chance to see him in the last couple of days?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've spent a bit of time with him, and look, to be honest, there was nothing more to be said. A lot of people felt like, I wish I'd got to sit down with him in the last few months, but he knew everyone's love. He knew the respect, the admiration. I think his documentary that we did and that Ed just mentioned was a phenomenal celebration of his life and also of his attitude through the battle with cancer. Like the lessons, and as we watch it again tonight, the lessons and the state of mind and the wisdom that he imparts from such a confronting challenge is just, it's so universal, and it's so admirable. And I think that's when he was at his best, when we did that documentary, and he felt so loved. So anyone who felt like they haven't had a chance to say goodbye, the last few months it was different. It was as if he had already really passed over.
Jules, just as we say every Anzac Day, if we do not learn and honour the dead who have given their lives for us, and in Jim's case, given so much time and effort for us, then their life has been lost. What can we do to make sure that Reach continues to go forward and touch as many people as it has done, and you being living proof of that?
Well, donations are the obvious one, because it just enables the infrastructure around the passion, and the passion is the easy part. Good intentions from all the people that really want to make a difference. With Jimbo was just so passionate about Reach. There was a lot of us, even the co-founder Paul Curry and myself, and all the we came through as kids and then moved on and ran it, and we sort of went on with our own lives and tried to create our own projects. For Jim, he never took his eyes off it. He would never shut up about Reach. It was just such an important cause for him. He just felt like, for young people who, could have their beliefs strengthened, if not restored, was so important to him. And, for all of us young guys who, were lucky enough to be mentored by Jim, we're going to ensure that the legacy lives on. And that happens through the Reach Foundation. And, you can actually donate tonight. Watching the documentary, you'll be able to see exactly how you could donate, all the details. I spoke with Jim's wife this morning, and Sam has just mentioned the importance of also donating to the Cancer Foundation. They're doing some melanoma research through Peter Mac, the Peter Mac Institute. So all those details will be on screen tonight. But if you did buy the DVD, it's a great one, as you say, Ed, to be able to show your kids, because no matter what happens in life, it's not it's not what you get from it, it's what you become from it. And Jim became a better person.
Mate, thank you very much, Jules, for spending the time with us today. It's an amazing situation that you've been through, and you've come out, like so many people, being a better person for knowing Jim Stynes. Tonight, 8:30, Jules Lund's documentary, Every Heart Beats True, the Jim Stynes story. And as I said, the DVD has another 70 minutes of extra unseen footage. And I recommend it to people. Just get it to show your kids at various stages of your life. Let's not leave this behind when we put Jim in the ground. This is a story that must live and continue to live.
Thanks, Jules.
Thanks, Darth. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
Good on you, mate.
Jules Lund joining us, and have a massive impact on you, that documentary. Now, I want to play you something. I'm not sure if you remember, but I hadn't heard this before today. This is you and Jim singing.
Fair city where girls are so pretty, I first set my eyes on sweet Molly Malone. As the wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying mussels and mussels, alive, alive, oh.
Hey. Now work out why you don't sing too often. When was that? What was the circumstances?
It was only a couple of months ago. Jim and I caught up to have a bit of a chat. He was in hospital. He'd just had further deep brain surgery at that stage, and he was struggling with his memory and his eyesight a little bit at that time. And we were just there, and they were doing a photo for building up towards Collingwood, and I don't think it was that far back. It was something to do with Collingwood and Melbourne, and it was a good opportunity just to catch up. And he came across from the hospital. They couldn't find him at first. He was in the rehab centre, and suddenly we started mucking around, and we did this on the Herald Sun web page. And suddenly everyone in rehab looked up and started smiling and mucking around. And for just a moment, in a lot of people's tough time, the people there had, broken legs and come back from ankle injuries, and other people like Jim who were fighting cancer. And it was just Jim to a T. I was just singing along. It was a privilege for me to be involved and just to have some sort of connection with the great man again as he was going through this period. And he just loved it. We had a bit of fun. That's what it's all about, as you'd say, and as the Irish say, a bit of crack amongst the hardship.
We're reflecting on the life of Jim Stynes here this afternoon on Triple M. Andrew Demetrio, the CEO of the AFL, joins us now. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Luke.
Tell us about your emotions and your thoughts. Obviously, we've known for a while that Jim has been ill, but what's been your overriding sense this afternoon, Andrew?
Oh, like everybody, Luke, regardless of the fact that we knew this day would come at some point in time, it doesn't make it any easier. It's just wonderful to hear the tributes that are pouring out for Jim, because, I mean, they're all true. Whether it's his contribution to football or the Melbourne Football Club, the AFL, to Reach, his community work, to how he saved the Melbourne Football Club, his courageous battle, he's been an inspiration. And despite the fact that we knew this day was coming, I don't think it makes it any easier.
Andrew, the football world will want to remember this great man, and it's probably too early to talk about things yet, but I think it would be wonderful to see everybody wear a black armband in round one. Obviously, there'll be other things. The state has offered a state funeral. He transcends so many worlds, doesn't he, Jim Stynes? You can't help but feel good when you think about his life.
Well, I think that's true, Eddie. I think in time, and as time passes, when we reflect back on Jim as a person and his contribution, I think we're all going to have a smile on our face, because it's just a remarkable story. It's an incredible story. It's almost a fictional story that a lad could come from Ireland, pick up our game, win a Brownlow medal, be the consecutive games holder, be so passionate about his football club that he wants to save it after he's left the football club, and of course then dedicate his life to youth and his family. It is a remarkable story, and it does put a smile on your face, because you can't help but admire what Jim achieved in his life. And even while he was ill, his selflessness throughout that whole issue, his thinking about others continuously, visiting people who themselves were ill. He's just remarkable, and our deepest thoughts go to obviously Sam and his children and his family, and I'm sure that they are grieving, they are hurting, and we are all with them.
Good on you, Andrew. Thanks for your time this afternoon.
Thanks, Eddie.
Andrew Demetrio, the CEO of the AFL. We caught up with Jim a number of times in the last 12 months here in the Triple M studios, and this is Jim talking about what God means to him.
Look, I was probably at that point anyway, like I used to go to Mass every day and that, but I never really understood it. It was just a ritual more than anything else. But now that the last 10 years really made me think, and I was looking for my own understanding of God, and I found a place, and I'm comfortable, in the Catholic Church, very comfortable, because I grew up in that. But I suppose the dogma and some of the rules in that, I'm obviously not comfortable with, don't agree with, but really believe in prayer. I believe in a God, and however you want to describe it, but probably the way I practice it now is probably a little bit different, but I'm probably as spiritual as I've ever been. And I just think it's important to live a good life. Like Buckminster Fuller once said, integrity is the essence of everything, and that's the way I try to live my life. It's about, trying to do the right thing.
And that sums it up. About doing the right thing. That's how he lived his life. That's how we'll remember Jim Stynes. Cameron Schwab is the Chief Executive of the Melbourne Football Club, but he's far more than that when it comes to Jim Stynes. They've been lifelong friends. They've been through battle together. They helped save the Melbourne Football Club together. A president can't do it without his Chief Executive, and Cameron Schwab joins me on the line right now. Cameron, first of all, our deepest sympathy to you personally, because this is a moment that you've been fearing, obviously. But in the context of Jim Stynes and the Melbourne Football Club, and staking some ground in this city for everything that we believe to be great about our game and the city of Melbourne itself, it's a day to reflect on a great Melburnian.
No, it is. It's one of those. I suppose we've lived through Jim and his illness, and then the end is always sudden, and I think that's how it's been felt in our club today. And just had a few weeks ago was when we played our first pre-season game, and Mitch Clark got in a bit of a scuffle with Matty Warnock, and he was wearing the number 11 jumper, and there was a bit of the usual jumper punching going on, and the jumper was ripped, and we grabbed the jumper after the game, and just in front of our player leadership group, just got Mitch to hand that ripped jumper to Don McClarty, and the jumper's got the Reach logo on the front of it, and Don made a little speech to our leadership group about what Jim would want from them, and it was as heartfelt as any words that I've heard, and I think the symbolism of the jumper and the symbolism of the heritage and the symbolism of the story, which probably everyone will talk of certainly today is one of the greatest in the game, is something we're all feeling today, particularly those who. You've got guys like Chris Connolly, Todd Viney's involved in that club every game of AFL footy, pretty well played with Jim Stynes in the side because Jim was such a constant, during that period. And, and they're certainly feeling it today.
Yeah, we know Jim's playing record, Cameron, the most consecutive games ever played, 244 games, 3 times an All-Australian, Brownlow medal, every decoration that you would want. As a president, he was able to achieve so much alongside you, Cameron. The debt demolition program was started in lots of ways by you guys and wiping off $5 million in a short space of time. You've had some time to think about this. Is there one legacy that Jim has encouraged you to go on and pursue in the future for Melbourne?
Well, I think it's probably, the words I used in terms of even describing it is that he had this great capacity to challenge you, but at the same time there was also a sense of staying true to what you believe. So, and there's real balance in that, because sometimes you can be so challenging in your way that you actually lose who you are and what you represent as part of all of that. Whereas, we certainly, for Melbourne and what it actually stands for as the club which actually, created and wrote the rules of the game and the fierce pride in our own heritage. But at the same time, we want to be this strong, modern, powerful, entity in our own right. And getting that balance right is one of the real things that that he really encouraged us to do and encouraged us to be in regard to that. And I think that will live on, that we've got to stay true to what we are. But if we don't challenge ourselves to build, something which is just powerful and successful for the next generation of people who love our club like the previous generation did, well, we won't leave the legacy that he was certainly seeking, and the one that we should seek of ourselves.
Well put, Cameron. And on behalf of everyone in the football world, our condolences to the Melbourne football family, and particularly you and Gary Lyon and Chris Connolly and Todd Viney and all the gang down there who loved and played with Jim, and he made such an impact. One final question to you. What's the memory that you have of Jim Stynes from inside your heart?
Look, I actually picked him up at the airport when he arrived from Ireland. And so we're talking probably when we were both young men together. And I think that it was... basically, even when he approached about coming in and taking on this role, I'd actually made up my mind I wasn't going to take it. And I'd spoken to my wife and I'd gone right through the process. And look, I don't think it's necessarily the thing I should be doing now. And Jim made one phone call and said, mate, we've got to do this. We've got no choice here. You'll have nothing to show for your love of the club unless you take this on. And just those were, and every piece of your sort of cognitive aspect of it was lost in just the pure emotional need to get this thing right, for everyone. I reckon probably that moment where it became personal was the thing which stays with me, and that's something which I'll treasure.
Good on you, Cameron. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
Cameron Schwab, Chief Executive, but a great friend of Jim Stynes. Das, can I get you to wrap up our tribute today? There, of course, will be so many tributes tonight at 8:30 on Channel 9. James Brayshaw, of course, with Billy Brownless, will also be talking to Melbourne identities as we pay tribute to a great guy. It's one of those ones for me. I think Jules Lund said it perfectly when he said the sun's shining. It's a beautiful Melbourne day today. A bit different than what it's like in Dublin today, but he was a man who straddled one side of the world to the other, and I feel uplifted by the last hour just to talk about what Jim's is like. Of course, we've all got the tears welling behind our eyes, but to know that his life has been appreciated, and hopefully for all of us, we'll take something a little bit away.
The diversity of people we've spoken to, Ed, in the last hour, from a young man who rang in from the Reach Foundation to Jules Lund, who he saved, to his great mates at the Melbourne Football Club, to the wider football community, to his work as president at the Melbourne Football Club, and started this afternoon talking about integrity, and that is what Jim has in as a legacy to me. In every situation, Jim has been able to hold himself high, regardless of the challenges that have come across in his life. And It has been an incredible life and a great privilege to be able to reflect on it here this afternoon.
To his wonderful wife, Sam, for her honesty and her bravery all the way through this battle, and to his beautiful kids, Matisse and Tiernan, football will never forget you. To Brian and Tess, his parents, and his brother Brian and his sisters, we thank you for everything you've sacrificed in giving your brother and son to Australia to make a person who came here and not only made a name for himself, but made this place a better place to be. I'm reflecting on the words of Julius Caesar of William Shakespeare when he said, "When beggars die, there are no comets seen in the sky. The heavens themselves mark the death of princes with fire." And Julius Caesar himself said, "Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once." Jim Stynes tasted of death but once, but boy, did he live a life.